Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. This is part one of the One World Religion Breakdown. I'll start the first part by breaking down this document on human fraternity. The first 20 minutes, I want to say, are me reading the document itself. There is some commentary throughout it, but most of my commentary I save for the end. So if you do want to just go to the website and read the document for yourself and then skip through my reading of it, that is up to you. Of course, you can listen to me read it. That's your decision. However, I read through this document, then I break it down at the end. That is all for part one. Part two will include the breakdown of the religions talked about within this document, and it'll give you further context for the things we will be discussing. There will be about 5 or 6 parts to this series, depending on how I break it down. But of course, this is just the start. What up, what up? It's your boy Namiri here with another breakdown for y'all. This one, we're going over the new one world religion that's being formed. And of course, if you're going over the one world religion, that implementation of the beast system that's talked about in Revelations, you got to include everything that's under the umbrella. That's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, the Abrahamic covenant that they take part in or at least claim to build these religions on. Chrislam, the origination of Chrislam with Nigerian Chrislam, and that Yoruba practices of spirituality and all the other practices that are incorporated within those things. So first and foremost, we're going to start on the juicy news from the Vatican, aka just the stuff that they put out and the takes that they want us to know about. So of course we're going to start on that document on human fraternity for world peace and living together. I got the full text right here. It is signed by Pope Francis and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed El-Talim. They signed it in Abu Dhabi, and I believe this was in 2019. So let's get to it. I'm going to say my comments after I read the document because, of course, I got some things to say about it. So, faith leads a believer to see in the other brother or sister to be supported in love. Through faith in God, who has created the universe, creatures, and all human beings equal on account of his mercy, believers are called to express this human fraternity by safeguarding creation and the entire universe and supporting all persons, especially the poorest and those most in need. This transcendental value served as the starting point for several meetings characterized by a friendly and fraternal atmosphere where we shared the joys, sorrows, and problems of our contemporary world. We did this by considering scientific and technological progress, therapeutic achievements, the digital era, the mass media, and communications. We reflected also on the level of poverty, conflict, and suffering of so many brothers and sisters in different parts of the world as a consequence of the arms race, social injustice, corruption, inequality, moral decline, terrorism, discrimination, extremism, and many other causes. From our fraternal and open discussions, and from the meeting that expressed profound hope in a bright future for all human beings, the idea of this document on human fraternity was conceived. It is a text that has been given honest and serious thought so as to be a joint declaration of good and heartfelt aspirations. It is a document that invites all persons who have faith in God and faith in humanity and human fraternity to unite and work together so that it may serve as a guide for future generations to advance a culture of mutual respect and the awareness of the great divine grace that makes all human beings brothers and sisters. In the name of God, who has created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity, and who has called them to live together as brothers and sisters, to fill the earth and make known the values of goodness, love, and peace. In the name of the innocent human life that God has forbidden to kill, affirming that whoever kills a person is like one who kills the whole of humanity, and that whoever saves a person is like one who saves the whole of humanity. In the name of the poor, the destitute, the marginalized, and those most in need, whom God has commanded us to keep as a duty required of all persons, especially the wealthy and of means. In the name of orphans, widows, refugees, and those exiled from their homes and their countries, in the name of all victims of wars, persecution, and injustice, in the name of the weak, those who live in fear, prisoners of war, and those tortured in any part of the world without distinction, in the name of people who have lost their security, peace, and the possibility of living together, becoming victims of destruction, calamity, and war, in the name of human fraternity that embraces all human beings, unites them, and renders them equal, in the name of this fraternity, torn apart by policies of extremism and division, by systems of unrestrained profit, or by hateful ideological tendencies that manipulate the actions and the futures of men and women, in the name of freedom that God has given to all human beings, creating them free and distinguishing them by this gift, in the name of justice and mercy, the foundations of prosperity and the cornerstone of faith, in the name of all persons of goodwill present in every part of the world, in the name of God and of everything stated thus far, Al-Azhar al-Sharif, and the Muslims of the East and West, together with the Catholic Church and the Catholics of the East and West, declare this adoption of a culture of dialogue as the path, mutual cooperation as the code of conduct, reciprocal understanding as the method and standard. We who believe in God and in the final meeting with Him and His judgment on the basis of His religious and moral responsibility, and through this document call upon ourselves, upon the leaders of the world, as well as the architects of international policy and world economy, and work strenuously to spread the culture of tolerance and of living together in peace, to intervene at the earliest opportunity, to stop the shedding of innocent blood and bring an end to wars, conflicts, environmental decay, and the moral and cultural decline that the world is presently experiencing. We call upon intellectuals, philosophers, religious figures, artists, media professionals, and men and women of culture in every part of the world to rediscover the values of peace, justice, goodness, beauty, human fraternity, and coexistence in order to confirm the importance of these values as anchors of salvation for all, and to promote them everywhere. This declaration, setting out from a profound consideration of our contemporary reality, valuing its successes and in solidarity with its suffering, disasters, and calamities, believes firmly that among the most important causes of the crises of the modern world are a desensitized human conscience, a distancing from religious values, and a prevailing individualism accompanied by materialistic philosophies that defy the human person and introduce worldly and material values in place of supreme and transcendental principles, while recognizing the positive steps taken by our modern civilization in the fields of science, technology, medicine, industry, and welfare, especially in developed countries. We wish to emphasize that associated with such historic advancements, great and valued as they are, there exists both a moral deterioration that influences international action and a weakening of spiritual values and responsibility. All this contributes to a general feeling of frustration, isolation, and desperation, leading many to fall either into a vortex of atheistic agnostic or religious extremism, or into a blind and fanatic extremism, which ultimately encourage forms of dependency and individual or collective self-destruction. History shows that religious extremism, national extremism, and also intolerance have produced in the world, be it in the East or West, what might be referred to as signs of a third world war being fought piecemeal in several parts of the world, and in many tragic circumstances these signs have begun to be painfully apparent, as in those situations where the precise number of victims, widows, and orphans is unknown. We see in addition other regions preparing to become theaters of new conflicts with outbreaks of tension and a buildup of arms and ammunition. And all this is a global context overshadowed by uncertainty, disillusionment, fear of the future, and controlled by narrow-minded economic interests. We likewise affirm that major political crises, situations of injustice, and lack of equitable distribution of natural resources which only a rich minority benefit from to the detriment of the majority of the peoples of the earth, have generated and continue to generate vast numbers of poor, infirm, and deceased persons. Y'all gonna have to excuse me. I'm gonna turn my text tones off. Yes, my text tones are DJ Khaled, because if you count another one enough times, you know how many notifications you got. But that's for me to deal with, not y'all. So now that I got that off, back to your regularly scheduled program. We'll see if I cut that out or not. I kind of think it's funny. Like, that's just me. So I'm going to start off at the top in terms of this paragraph. We likewise affirm that major political crises, situations of injustice, and lack of equitable distribution of natural resources, which only a rich minority benefit from to the detriment of the majority of the peoples of the earth, have generated and continue to generate vast numbers of poor, infirm, and deceased persons. This leads to a catastrophic crisis that various countries have fallen victim to despite their natural resources and the resourcefulness of young people which characterize these nations. In the face of such crises that result in the deaths of millions of children wasted away from poverty and hunger, there is an unacceptable silence on an international level. It is clear in this context how the family, as the fundamental nucleus of society and humanity, is essential in bringing children into the world, raising them, educating them, and providing them with solid moral formation and domestic security. To attack the institution of the family, to regard it with contempt, or to doubt its important role is one of the most threatening evils of our era. We also affirm the importance of awakening religious awareness and the need to revive this awareness in the hearts of new generations through sound education and an adherence to moral values and upright religious teachings. In this way, we can confirm tendencies that are individualistic, selfish, conflicting. Let me go back to the top of this sentence. In this way, we can confront tendencies that are individualistic, selfish, conflicting, and also address radicalism and blind extremism in all its forms and expressions. The first and most important aim of religions is to believe in God, to honor Him, and to invite all men and women to believe that this universe depends on a God who governs it. He is the Creator who has formed us with His divine wisdom and has granted us the gift of life to protect it. It is a gift that no one has the right to take away, threaten, or manipulate to suit oneself. Indeed, everyone must safeguard this gift of life from its beginning up to its natural end. We therefore condemn all practices that are a threat to life, such as genocide, acts of terrorism, forced displacement, trafficking in human organs, abortion, and euthanasia. We likewise condemn the policies that promote these practices. Moreover, we resolutely declare that religions must never incite war, hateful attitudes, hostility, and extremism, nor must they incite violence or the shedding of blood. These tragic realities are the consequence of a deviation from religious teaching. They result from a political manipulation of religions and from interpretations made by religious groups who, in the course of history, have taken advantage of the power of religious sentiment in the hearts of men and women in order to make them act in a way that has nothing to do with the truth of religion. This is done for the purpose of achieving objectives that are political, economic, worldly, and short-sighted. We thus call upon all concerned to stop using religions to incite hatred, violence, extremism, and blind fanaticism, and to refrain from using the name of God to justify acts of murder, exile, terrorism, and oppression. We ask this on the basis of our common belief in God, who did not create men and women to be killed or to fight one another, nor to be tortured or humiliated in their lives and circumstances. God, the Almighty, has no need to be defended by anyone and does not want His name to be used to terrorize people. This document, in accordance with previous international documents that have emphasized the importance of the role of religions in the constitution of world peace, upholds the following: the firm conviction that authentic teachings of religions invite us to remain rooted in the values of peace, to defend the values of mutual understanding, human fraternity, and harmonious coexistence, to reestablish wisdom, justice, and love, and to reawaken religious awareness amongst young people so that future generations may be protected from the realm of materialistic thinking and from dangerous policies of unbridled greed and the indifference that are based on the law of force and not on the force of law. Freedom is a right of every person. Each individual enjoys the freedom of belief, thought, expression, and action. The pluralism, the diversity of religions, color, sex, race, and language are willed by God in His wisdom, through which He created human beings. This divine wisdom is a source from which the right to freedom of belief and the freedom to be different derives. Therefore, the fact that people are forced to adhere to a certain religion or culture must be rejected. As to the imposition of a cultural way of life that others do not accept, justice based on mercy is the path to follow in order to achieve a dignified life in which every human being has a right. Dialogue, understanding, and the widespread promotion of a culture of tolerance, acceptance of others, and of living together peacefully would contribute significantly to reducing many economic, social, political, and environmental problems that weigh so heavily on a large part of humanity. Dialogue among believers means coming together in the vast space of spiritual, human, and shared social values, and from here, transmitting the highest moral virtues that religions aim for. It also means avoiding unproductive discussions. The protection of places of worship, synagogues, churches, and mosques is a duty guaranteed by religions, human values, laws, and international agreements. Every attempt to attack places of worship or threaten them by violent assaults, bombings, or destruction is a deviation from the teachings of religions as well as a clear violation of international law. Terrorism is deplorable and threatens the security of people, be they in the east or the west, the north or the south, and disseminates panic, terror, and pessimism. But this is not due to religion, even when terrorists instrumentalize it. It is due rather to an accumulation of incorrect interpretations of religious texts and to policies linked to hunger, poverty, injustice, oppression, and pride. This is why it is so necessary to stop supporting terrorist movements fueled by financing, the provision of weapons and strategy, and by attempts to justify these movements, even using the media. All these must be regarded as international crimes that threaten security and world peace. Such terrorism must be condemned in all its forms and expressions. The concept of citizenship is based on the equality of rights and duties under which all enjoy justice. It is therefore crucial to establish in our societies the concept of full citizenship and reject the discriminatory use of the term minorities, which engenders feelings of isolation and inferiority. Its misuse paves the way for hostility and discord. It undergoes any successes and takes away the religious and civil rights of some citizens who are thus discriminated against. Good relations between East and West are indisputably necessary for both. They must not be neglected, so that each can be enriched by the other's culture through fruitful exchange and dialogue. The West can discover in the East remedies for those spiritual and religious maladies that are caused by prevailing materialism, and the East can find in the West many elements that can help free them from weakness, division, conflict, and scientific, technical, and cultural decline. It is important to pay attention to religious, cultural, and historical differences that are a vital component in shaping the character, culture, and civilization of the East. It is likewise important to reinforce the bond of fundamental human rights in order to help ensure a dignified life for all men and women of the East, avoiding the politics of double standards. It is an essential requirement to recognize the right of women to education and employment, to recognize their freedom to exercise their own political rights. Moreover, efforts must be made to free women from historical and social conditioning that runs contrary to the principles of their faith and dignity. It is also necessary to protect women from sexual exploitation and from being treated as merchandise or objects of pleasure or financial gain. Accordingly, an end must be brought to all those inhuman and vulgar practices that denigrate the dignity of women. Efforts must be made to modify those laws that prevent women from fully enjoying their rights. The protection of the fundamental rights of children to grow up in a family environment, to receive nutrition, education, and support are duties of the family and society. Such duties must be guaranteed and protected so that they are not overlooked or denied to any child in any part of the world. All these practices that violate the dignity and rights of children must be denounced. It is equally important to be vigilant against the dangers that they are exposed to, particularly in the digital world, and to consider as a crime the trafficking of their innocence and all violations of their use. The protection of their rights The protection of the rights of the elderly, the weak, the disabled, and the oppressed is a religious and social obligation that must be guaranteed and defended through strict legislation and the implementation of the relevant international agreements. To this end, by mutual cooperation, the Catholic Church and Al-Azhar announced and pledged to convey this document to authorities, influential leaders, persons of religion all over the world, appropriate regional and international organizations within society, religious institutions, and leading thinkers. They further pledged to make known the principles contained in this declaration at all regional and international levels, while requesting that these principles be translated into policies, decisions, legislative texts, courses of study, and materials to be circulated. Al-Azhar and the Catholic Church asked that this document become the object of research and reflection in all schools, universities, and institutions of formation, thus helping to educate new generations to bring goodness and peace to others, and to be defenders everywhere of the rights of the oppressed and of the least of our brothers and sisters. In conclusion, our aspiration is that this declaration may constitute an invitation to reconciliation and fraternity among all believers, indeed among believers and non-believers, and among all people of goodwill. This declaration may be an appeal to every upright conscience that rejects deplorable violence and blind extremism, an appeal to those who cherish the values of tolerance and fraternity that are promoted and encouraged by religions. This declaration may be a witness to the greatness of faith in God that unites divided hearts and elevates the human soul. This declaration may be a sign of the closeness between East and West, between North and South, and between all who believe that God has created us to understand one another, cooperate with one another, and live as brothers and sisters who love one another. This is what we hope and seek to achieve with the aim of finding a universal peace that all can enjoy in this life. Abu Dhabi, February 4th, 2019. I'm going to just take a moment to let that sink in, because I'm about to go from the rooted to the tutor, from the top to the bottom, and break this bullshit down. Because I'm trying to understand what the fuck these people talking about. Because it sounds like they blowing smoke out their ass to create grass. So let's see what this, let's see. Let's start at the top. Fuck the intro, we going right into the doc. Alright, so in the name of God, who has created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity, and who has called them to live together as brothers and sisters, to fill the earth and to make known the values of goodness, love, and peace. Alright, so let's just start here. So, we are talking about Catholicism, which is a branch of Christianity. We are talking about Islam, right? Of course, when you scroll down in this bad boy, they're building 3 different buildings, because in their new one world religion it includes Judaism, right? So where's that little part that mentions here it is. The protection of places of worship, synagogues, churches, and mosques is a duty guaranteed by religions, human values, laws, and international agreements. Right. So, what does that mean? In the name of God, who has created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity, and who has called them to live together as brothers and sisters, to fill the earth and make known the values of goodness, love, and peace. You already contradicting yourself, because the Bible is not about everybody. The Bible is about a specific subset of people, and that's why the Bible has so many different groups of people in it. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I suggest you look up the different tribes, aka groups of people talked about in the Bible, because everybody's in there. Your Arabs are in there. Your Arabs claim to come from Abraham, who comes from Ishmael, and that's where your Arabs come from. They claim to be Ishmaelites, right? But the covenant didn't come through Ishmael, nor did it come through your Jewish people. That's why your Jewish people say that they're Jewish, which is a bit of. I don't know anybody who claims to be Ish. Like, I'm not Hebrew-ish. If I was to identify as a color, let's say, I'm not blackish, you know what I'm saying? They would look at me as I'm a black American. Being blackish means I'm a bit of black. Being Jewish means you're a bit of Jew. It doesn't mean you are the original. It means you're an imitation. But I'll get to that when I get to breaking down Judaism. This is just the start of what I wanted to say about this document. Because they say that God has created all human beings equal. That's already contradicting the book that they came to build off of. But of course, these are religions. Religions follow a doctrine, aka the text that they choose to put forth, not the origination that they take from. And when I say the origination, I mean the Bible. If you have an issue with the Bible, I suggest you get an older version of it, a older copy of it. You read some of the books that were taken out, front to back. You know what I'm saying? You read all of it. I got a Bible that has like 1,800 pages in it. I suggest you read that. You read some of the translations and different meanings for the words, and you go from there before you formulate an opinion on something. Because again, I went to school for religion. I read a bunch of different religious texts. I know how to study and articulate what's being said in text, and this is why I sit where I sit with certain things. I'm not saying I'm correct or incorrect. I'm just looking and analyzing facts. So further, let's talk about, in the name of peoples who have lost their security, peace, and the possibility of living together, becoming victims of destruction, calamity, and war. Y'all should look into Mother Teresa and all the different human and sex trafficking that she did for the Vatican, just as a start. Furthermore, look into it's either Bengal boys or Bengali boys. It's one of the two. It might be the Bengal boys that are the little boys that are dressed up as girls that Muslim men lay with, as a way to say that they're not having sex outside of their relationship with their wives, because they don't love that little boy, because the love you have in a marriage between a man and a woman can't be articulated between a man and a man, so thus they don't owe that boy anything. Again, I'm just saying, look these things up for yourselves. So where is the next part? Because I want to get into this whole, I want to see this World War III piece right here. Here we go. History shows that religious extremism, national extremism, and also intolerance have produced in the world, be it in the East or West, what might be referred to as signs of a third world war being fought piecemeal. In my opinion, this is where I give an opinion. This is subliminal programming for what's to come, because it's either you fight against the quote-unquote system that they're implementing, or you join with it, and it'll be on a global scale, aka a world war. Because what do we see? We see, in addition, other regions preparing to become theaters of new conflicts, with outbreaks of tension and buildup of arms and ammunition, and all this in a global context overshadowed by uncertainty, disillusionment, fear of the future, and controlled by narrow-minded economic interests. But the last time I checked, all the people who control war are the elites, and the elites all sit in bed with the Pope and the Vatican. If you think I'm joking, look up Rothschild, Rockefeller, look up Obama, look up George Bush. They all have gone to the Vatican. They all have met with the Pope. They all have discussions with this man. So again, what are they really saying by these things? And I'm going to conclude with this because, as you can see, we've all read this thing, and I'm already 30 minutes in, and I done took at least 15 reading this motherfucker. Excuse my language. So, the first and most important aim of religions is to believe in God, to honor Him, and to invite all men and women to believe that this universe depends on the God who governs it. So this is when this is when I get a little raw. I would suggest you to read Genesis and you to look at the creation story of any ancient or quote unquote mythical tradition, as they say, because the globe model as a theory wasn't put in place until 500 years ago, because that's when the religion of science was created, implemented, and it became mass scale 200 to 300 years ago, I believe. So we live in a quote unquote firmament. We have waters above, the firmament, the earth we live on, waters below, then it's quote unquote Sheol, as they say, or the darkness upon which all the negative beings reside. And when I say all, I don't mean they all literally live there. I just mean that the ones that are trapped there because we have demonic spirits running around our plane, and that is what you get into the seed of the fallen angels. But that's a whole video for a different time. I'm not going over fallen angel children right now. And you can choose what you want to believe, what you don't want to believe. I suggest doing research and see what conclusion you come to for yourself. But when you say this universe, this sounds like scientific jargon to me. And then it then goes on to say, we therefore condemn all those practices that are a threat to life, such as genocide, acts of terrorism, forced displacement, trafficking in human organs, abortion, and euthanasia. We likewise condemn the policies that promote these practices. Again, look into Mother Teresa. Look into the Bengali boys. Or the Bengal boys. I keep saying Bengali. It's probably not Bengali. It's probably Bengal boys. I just be saying Bengali. I don't know why. Don't quote me. But look into the Bengal boys in the Middle East. Look into Mother Teresa. All her child trafficking. All her sex trafficking. Let's talk about how the Pope be kissing little boys on the crotch. And you know what I'm saying? And these are the things they want to say, as if the Roman Catholic Church hasn't gone to war numerous times in the last 2,000 years. So, now that we have gone through this document on human fraternity for world peace, aka globalism,